Good morning, everybody. Welcome to West Texas A&M University. And today's seminar is very important: global financial markets, changing trends and developments. And if you know, and you are taking it from my classes, global markets are very big, and that's why we have a special speaker from Dallas, Texas, Mr. Anupam Johri. He is one of the managing directors of Morgan Stanley. It's a very big investment bank and financial planning. But before I say a few things, I want to share a few things with you, data, and that's where we all need to know why we are doing it. Basically, global financial markets, the daily turnover is 7 trillion dollar. Think about it, $6 to $7 trillion change hand every day, and 200 plus countries, and 30 plus emerging markets, and United States is $26 trillion economy. So it plays a very important role. But global financial markets are also made up of black swans. Black swans, according to the definition we have, black swans are unpredictable events, financial crisis. And then we have dragon kings. What are the dragon kings? Kings are any event which is extremely large. So all these things do have a big impact on global financial markets. Very few other issues, and that is we live in a global world. It's a globalization, although some people may not believe it, but there's a big discussion going on, and countries are connected, markets are connected. You are sitting here, but you can be watched in any country. Okay, so we live in a global financial world. We live and we are surrounded by financial centers: New York, Japan, Berlin, London, Singapore, all the countries. What are the other issues here? We have a lot of institutions. They control global financial markets, highly interconnected, also made up of global conflicts. And there are quite a few conflicts going on in these days. And they also have a big impact on global financial markets, especially COVID-19. What else we have, and that's what we teach. Markets are kind of made up of lot of uncertain environment, unknown events, again black swans, and dragon kings. And market risk is a very big issue. That's why most of you are business students. You have to calculate and analyze your risks, and it is surrounded by lot of other forces. Again, at the end of the day, it's part of your globalization. Okay, it doesn't matter where you live. So these are few comments I have, and after that I'm going to share with you few things about our speaker. I will let him introduce himself, but he came here in WT. He came to WT from India, and that was 1990 or 1991. And he got his MBA, but after that, I will let him tell you what are the things. But the data I have about him, let me share it with you. So, this is Barron's. It is one of the top business newspapers in the world, and he made it to Barron's. Okay, this is Financial Times, and this is 2018. He was among the top 200 or 400 in the world, and especially in the United States. Again, this is Barron's. This is 2019, and he made it to the top 1200. And again, lot of other information. So he has been included and recognized by Barron's, Financial Times, and Wall Street Journal. It's a very big achievement. And coming from WT, we are thankful to him that he has brought so much honor to WT. I mean, we can discuss a lot of other things. I have a lot of data about him, but the things which make us really happy, that he is very successful and he has been well rewarded. But at the end of the day, he also worked hard. And at this time, let's start the session. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's invite our distinguished guest, Mr. Johri.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar. Thank you, all of you, for being here. And so I was here in 1991, and Dr. Anwar was my first class that I ever took in the College of Business. He was the first professor, and we had to, at that time, the classes were held at the Amarillo College in Amarillo. So we had to, obviously didn't have a car, so we had to carpool and get there, but it was a lot of fun. And so I just want to tell you a few minutes about my journey with all this. So I originally, as Dr. Anwar said, I grew up in India, and and then I back in the early 80s when I was growing up in India, if you were good in school, then either you became a doctor or you became an engineer. There were really not that much choices that you had in front of you. So I had no, I mean, I couldn't handle looking at blood and all that. So being a doctor was out of the picture. So then I said, okay, I'm going to become an engineer. And some of you might have heard, but there are these colleges in India called Indian Institutes of Technology, IIT. So I took a test, and I remember that, and it's kind of, now it feels strange how they admit students. So there was one test on one day, a written exam. And so the year that I took that exam, there were 53,000 kids, and there were 360 seats. So it was tough, but they had nothing yet, no interview. So I made it in there, but the heart was never there. I really loved finance and economics. So I finished that, did well, and worked there for a few years. And then I decided to do my MBA in finance. So I came here. I also had a admission at UT, but they didn't have any scholarship. So I thought that, hey, I will come to West Texas, which is obviously not as well known all over the world. And I said, after a semester, I'm going to transfer to West Texas. But once I came here, I really enjoyed my time here. I mean, and as luck would have it, over the years, my wife now, I met her here. She was going to college here, and then we both stayed and finished everything here. And then I went on to work for Morgan Stanley. So I've been with them for about 30 years. And as Dr. Anwar said, I'm one of the managing directors there. So what we do is I run a private wealth management team. So basically, me and my team, we manage in the ballpark of about $1.6 billion. And we are 6 people, so I kind of run the team. And our clients are mainly in Texas, but then they are also spread out all over the country. And like, as you know, Dr. Anwar had mentioned, that the team that I run is called the JL Group. J stands for my name, and L is Lacroix, who's one of my partners. So actually, we just got information last week that Forbes magazine has named the top teams in the nation, and we were one of those teams that have been named in that in 2024. So that being said, so the one thing that I will tell all of you, and most of you are students, that one thing is that, as you see with my story, that there's no limit to what you can do and what you can achieve. I mean, you're here in Canyon, and you might be from Amarillo or Pampa, but again, I mean, don't limit your vision, because I was in India, I had no idea what was here, and this is 30-something years ago, when there was no internet, there was no, I mean, you guys have so much access to information. Sometimes I say, I don't know if it is always good or bad, but it's there, So that is one thing. So a lot of things that we follow. So I'm going to kind of go along with some information that I share with my clients, and I think that it also makes a lot of sense with life too. So let's just I'll just go ahead and show you some of the slides of the presentation. So this is about the company that I work for, and as Morgan Stanley is probably one of the largest financial services company in the world. I mean, it was founded in 1935 with just 13 people, and now we have got 80,000 employees spread out in 100 plus countries. And as Morgan Stanley manages a total of about $1.5 trillion. So it's a large sum of money. It's a big company. It's a good company. And in the future, any of you, if you have any intentions of wanting to go and work there, please feel free to contact me also. So now, so this is kind of an interest. So like, what I do is we manage funds for clients, right? So you have to, and what we hear is, you see the Wall Street, you see the stock exchange, people are running with, papers flying all over. That's not how the actual investment world works, right? So the biggest thing that we see, and this is again, I apply that to life and investments, that a lot of times the emotions are the one that make us do the wrong thing, whether, and it can be applied to life, it can be applied to investments. So as an example, like, one example is overconfidence. So I'll give you an example. Some of you might have heard about it, some of you might not have, but lately, there are some stocks that have gone up. So there's a company that makes chips for artificial intelligence called NVIDIA. The stock has just gone bananas over the last year. So sometimes what happens is that people, they keep on buying that stock, but there will come a point in time where it gets too high and it's going to fall down. So again, we have to keep the balance and the same thing happens in life, right? Somebody starts using some substance that they shouldn't, they feel, hey, I can manage this, or nothing will happen to me. So again, that's something which you do. Then there is something called confirmation bias. What that means is that if you believe in something, so like, for example, if you say that stock market, if you Google stock market crash, you're going to find 500 different articles there. But if you said stock market 50,000, you're going to find. So confirmation bias is, if you believe in something, we are just trying to confirm that. So we are only looking for stuff that is going to confirm what we are believing. And then the anchoring thing is interesting. So it is like, so the example is that if I showed you a shirt that was $500, and then I showed you another one that's $100, you say, oh, that one is cheap. But that is cheap because you saw the first shirt, which was $500. So that's again part of the emotions that are in our mind. So again, as they say that, in investing, for sure, we say that you have got to be rational. And like as I said, that, my team, we manage a large sum of money, and a lot of things that happen in the financial markets are not in our control. What is going on in Israel or in Ukraine, or, with the inflation. So a lot of things are not, but again, we have got to, and that's why I always joke with my clients and my team that we as wealth managers are, a lot of our job is like a psychologist, where there are people are thinking this, and you've got to just kind of, make them go the right way. So that is something that, as I said, that whether it be investments, whether it be your life, you have got to keep the emotions in check, and that's important to know. Now this is again, the same kind of a thing, but this is a very important slide that we use in our business, that a lot of time is same thing, that, just like what is happening with some of these technology companies, there's these emotions that you get to euphoria. If you say, oh, everybody's making money and we can just put the money in and make money and all that. And then you go on the other direction, and then at the bottom, which is probably the best time where somebody should be investing the money, that's where most people, they end up pulling the things out. So again, the thing is that whether, and I always keep on referencing that, seeing all the young people here, that whether it be life or be investments, you have to always have an even keel with the emotional part of it. Now this is again, a lot of times you people are obviously inundated with information. There's like, you've got websites you can pull up, and, magazines, newspapers. But the thing is that, to understand, in our business, the goal of the media is not the same as the goal of any of us. So the goal of my goal and my client's goal is to increase their wealth. But like the media people, they don't care. So like, as an example, this is August of 1979, and obviously none of you will know this. I mean, but like Dr. Anwar and some of Dr. Almaz and some of, Carter was the president here and all that, and the inflation was running high, and the stock market was, so the Business Week, which is a very, respected magazine, they said, the death of equities. Equities mean stocks. So they said, so if somebody did that, what happened was that the market rose by 2,400% over the next 20 years. The S&P went up that much. This one I remember well is 99. Oil price had dropped down to below $10. Now, most of my clientele are in West Texas, and they are people, either they're somehow involved in the oil business. So I keep pretty good information about the oil industry because, people might be working for Conoco or Phillips or Exxon. So in 99, the oil price drops down below $10, and everybody's saying, we don't need any more oil and this. And so if you think about it, what happens next, in the next 7, 8 years, oil goes from $10 to $140. So again, the part of that is that we have got to keep rational minds when we are looking at any of this. And this again, in our business, they say, this is really interesting. So if you think about this, this is data that goes for about 20 years. So it shows that if somebody just invested the money in the stock market and left it there, you didn't do anything in and out, I think it would be $10,000 turned into 65 grand over those 20 years. So if you think about it, that's a lot. That's 6.5 times, and you made almost 10%. So if you think about this, the market opens for 250 days in a year. So in 20 years, 5,000 days the stock market was open. Think about this. If you missed 10 days, so you're missing 10 days out of that, your rate of return goes from 9.8 to 5.6. Think about this. If you missed 1% of the time, out of the 5,000 days, you were out of the investing market for 50 days, you would have been better off not doing anything, keeping the money in the bank. So that is, I think, important that, and in anything in life, right? Like I apply this not just to investments for the younger people. You have got to have the dedication. You see a lot of students, they go and they take one class here, then one class there, then you switch. But, once you realize, hey, this is what we like, you have got to stay for the long run, because that's where the results they follow. That if you and this is again an interesting little thing Albert Einstein said. Because how this thing happens, right? The compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it, and those who do not understand it pay it. So that's the key. That when you are in the investing thing, somebody, I always remember that people say, hey, I can only deposit $100 a month. What is that going to do? But if you apply the compound interest on it, you put the time there, that okay, it might be 10 years, 15 years, it is there. So I think that's the key, that we have to. Yeah, some of these are not that relevant to you guys, so I'm going to just kind of flip over. Now let's just go here, and this is interesting chart. So as some of you might have seen, that over the last 12 or 14 months, there are 7 companies that have just done phenomenally well. And so these are Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Nvidia, Tesla, and Meta is the parent company of Facebook. And so what we have seen is, it is interesting that if you just look at the whole 500 companies in the market, and these companies, 7 companies, they make up more than 30% of the market. So again, what it says is that is the emotion part of the picture, right? People are emotionally just putting money in these companies. It is not a healthy situation, in our opinion, because the market has become so concentrated. And so again, that's where we apply the emotion part. You wanted to say something about the Magnificent Seven now? So that is, I think, and I have seen that so many times in my 30 years that different things come and go. There was a time 2-3 years ago, there was this, the EV battery, the cars, the electric cars, so the battery makers were going up like crazy. And then now we have got this whole push on this artificial intelligence. And I remember back, in the day in 99 and 2000, internet was new. So like we had a bubble at that time in the technology companies. So any company that had a .com behind it was going up. So again, my point is that just as in life and everything, you've got to keep the balance. It's hard to do sometimes, and that's what happens. Like, and what is so interesting, I've learned, having 3 kids of my own, that all the principles that we apply in investing can be applied to life, right? So if you look at these companies, so what is happening, your neighbor says, hey, I put so much money in Microsoft and I've made so much. And your friend says that, your sister, so it's peer pressure, right? So you say, oh my goodness, everybody else is just buying these stocks and they're getting rich and I'm not the one. The same thing, I would talk to my children that, if you look at college, right? The friends are drinking or doing something that, you don't want to do, but then there's that pressure, right? That, oh my gosh, everybody's having a party and they're all having a good time. And why? So, sometimes it takes something to stand away from the crowd. But that's something interesting. And as you can see that, in 2023, the market was up about 20%, the whole market, which is 500 companies. But if you just broke out these 7 companies, if you just owned 7 stocks, your return was over 80%. So that tells you that things are not healthy. And then if you took out the 7, the rate of return in the market was actually 10. So again, what we do in our thing is that we do explain to people that, we don't want to get caught up in this, because we all know that the next cycle is the other way, where these things are going to become, a bubble, and then they will probably kind of, fall downwards. Now this tells you something about how little it means to me what predictions are, right? So here are predictions from some of the biggest companies for 2024. As you can see, Oppenheimer is saying 9%, JP Morgan is saying minus 11%. So, and if you do, the average is like 1%. So my point is that these people, and Morgan Stanley has plenty of those people, strategists, they are paid to make predictions, but the thing is that a lot of times in the business that we are, making predictions is hard. So we always listen to it, we watch it, but again, it's not something that we rely on all the time. And because there are so many different things that happen and that can change over the rest of the year. A couple of funny stories that I will tell you over the years that I've done this. So this happened in 2009. The stock market was down 50% and everything was going on. So I came into my office. So my secretary was waiting for me. She said, hey, you got to call XYZ. He's been calling. He's called like 5 times. So I called him and he said, hey, we have got to sell all our investments. I said, what? He said, well, I heard on TV the Dow is going to fall another 50%. So I said, who said that? He said, I don't know the name. I said, okay, so I'm your financial advisor for the last 15 years, and you are hearing on television, you don't know the name of the person who said the market is going to drop 50% and you want to sell. So then he got a little more calmed down. He said, okay, yeah, that makes me feel a little better. So, then we finally didn't do that. But, like there are so many different things that happen over the years. So, the other thing is that this is again going to be a really interesting year, as most of you know. There are so many elections that are going to happen in 2024. Almost looks like they said that 40 or 50% of the world, 50% of the world population is going to have an election. There's a big election in India, and as we can see, Taiwan, Mexico, U.S., and all of that. So again, I mean, I don't put much thing into the elections because we have studied the markets, and the markets have done identical. If you look at the Republican president versus the Democratic president, the markets have not done. So the thing that I always say is that a lot of times the headline news, you're going to, I mean, if you think about this, the markets have really done well over the last 3-4 months. If you look at the headline news, it's horrible, right? I mean, we've got stuff going on in Gaza and Israel, and then, Ukraine is still there, and now we've got this whole circus with Trump and all this stuff that will go on for the rest of the year. So if you look at the headlines, they are horrible, right? I mean, there's no stability. We don't know, who is going to be the president. We don't know what goes on in the Middle East, but the markets have done well. So we have always, in our business, we say you have got to separate the headlines from the financial news. Now, the financial part is that if you look at the U.S. economy, we look at the companies, fairly healthy. I mean, like even the company like NVIDIA, which is, I think, is overpriced, but they made $17 billion in profits. It's a large sum of money. They are not a profitless company like what was going on back 20 years ago at that time. So again, I mean, this is going to be a year where there's going to be a lot of news that you're going to hear all the time about this. I mean, there are different elections, different things. But again, like, as an investment advisor, and I tell my clients as investors, I mean, there's not a reason to pay too much heed to it. A lot of time people, they pay too much attention to the headlines, and they make decisions based on that, which might not have much to do with the actual performance. Yeah, this just, most of you know that the interest rates had really ramped up over the last, this is probably one of the fastest increases of interest rates we have seen ever. They were at 0%, they went to 5%. So I mean, that caused a lot of problems with the stock market, inflation, and all that. But now it looks like things are under control, and it looks like that we are going to see a reduction in the interest rates as the year goes by. We haven't seen much of that obviously yet, but that is something there, and this is like kind of the like what I had mentioned at the beginning, that if you look at this, that this goes back 90 years, right? So you see that there's always a reason that things can go wrong. I've been doing this for 30 years. There is not one year where January 1 came and we said, hey, everything is wonderful this year. There's always an impending problem somewhere, either in the U.S. or in the Middle East or somewhere. But if you see, I mean, if you go back and look at the history of the Dow Jones, in 1896, Dow Jones was 100, and today it is almost 39,000, right? So if one of these times JFK got assassinated, and some of the stuff that maybe you guys will even know, there was a flash crash, there was Bernie Madoff, U.S. debt, then Russia invaded Ukraine, and COVID-19 came. At that time, looked like that was going to finish everything off, and here we are. So again, I mean, the thing is that just like the people, I mean, the economy, the country is resilient. The U.S., the size of the U.S. stock market is $50 trillion. And it is obviously the largest market in the world. It's probably the most transparent, but again, I mean, there are a lot of other things. So that is something that we want to always remember, that in life or in investment, you have got to focus on the long term, and that again is a message that I give young people, that not only worry about investment, but when you are in college and you are trying to think about something, look at, this is my goal, and how am I going to get there? Don't get distracted by things that will come along the way, which there will always be things that will happen, where, it'll kind of pull you back, right? I mean, you might have a failure somewhere or something, but again, I mean, you have got to keep an eye on the ball. So the another story on that I will tell you. So when I started, so as you can see, I'm from India, And 20, 30 years ago, I had a pretty heavy accent. Most people couldn't understand that. So when I went to work for Morgan Stanley, I was sent to New York for training. So there was a gentleman, he was one of the managers. So he said that, so where are you going to be? So I said, I'm going to be in Amarillo, Texas. He said, oh, I heard that's the Bible Belt. I said, well, I don't know about that. But so he said, man, you don't waste your time because you're not going to make any clients there. So I said, what do you mean? He said, you don't talk like them, you don't look like them, you don't do none of that. So you're going to waste a year or two of your life, and then you will decide this is not for you. So I didn't say anything to him. I mean, he was one of my bosses. I said, okay. I shook his hand, and I said, okay, now I'm going to show him. So I came back to Amarillo, and fortunately, I worked hard, and over the years, as things got good, I would be invited to these meetings that I would see him at, like they call them President's Club, Chairman's Club, and he would just come to me, shake my hand, and give me a smile, and just walk. He said, man, I was wrong. So the thing is, and I always told him, his name was Jeff Adams, I still remember. I said, Jeff, you gave me the determination because you told me that I'm not going to be able to do this. And I needed to show you that I can. And I'm going to do it while I'm in Amarillo. And that's what happened. So my point is that that's what all of you should be, that, you should have goals and don't let them go. I mean, like this is, you live here, but I mean, there's a world in Dallas, there's New York, so I mean, just be that. So, that I think is important. As we do with our client, we always tell them that, hey, you got to have the goals, and we got to reach the goals. This is, by the way, this is my team. So that we call them the JL group. So, so that was kind of my presentation. Now, a couple of things I was going to do. I had a couple of little gifts here that I was going to give it to somebody who gave a good answer. So this is it's a Bluetooth speaker of Morgan Stanley, and these are some earbuds, Morgan Stanley. So I'm going to just ask you a couple of questions. Raise your hand. Whoever answers will get the speaker. So as I said, that I started in the business, and again, I mean, just for reference, Dow is 39,000 now, Dow Jones. When I started, take a guess what the Dow Jones would have been in 1993. Number-wise. Today is 39,000. Anybody else?
1,000.
Okay. The Dow, huh? 5,000. You said 5,000. Okay. The Dow was 3,500. So whoever said 5,000 is the closest to it. Is that you? Okay. Oh yeah, you said it too, but he said it first. Okay. All right. Yeah, cut it in half. Oh, yeah. Okay, so another question I'll throw, and this is very interesting. So, as we were talking about these 7 companies, right? So the stock of Microsoft, the market value of Microsoft, just one stock, is bigger than the stock market, the whole stock market of a country. And I'll name 3 countries, and you got to choose which one. Canada, UK, or Japan. So I'm talking about the value of the stock, Microsoft's value alone. Anybody else? So the question is the market value of one stock, Microsoft, is bigger than the market value of all the stocks in one of these exchanges. That's correct. Yeah, you're right. That's right. It's Canada. So the Canadian stock market is about $3 trillion, and Microsoft stock alone is worth $3 trillion. So again, I mean, that's something, interesting to know. And then, any other questions anybody has? That's good. Otherwise, Dr. Anwar, anything?
We have a lot of questions.
Okay.
I have the mic.
Mine was about you came from India. You said 30 years ago. What were kind of the main cultural differences you felt in a business sense and kind of in a financial sense from India to the US? Obviously, the US is a huge market, but India's got a huge population as well. And what were the kind of main differences in a kind of business sense for you?
So one thing is, which I think is still is true, is that in India, unfortunately, there's corruption at every level, from the bottom to the top, and that is cleaner here. I mean, obviously, there might be some at the top, but you don't see that at every level. And the second thing is, which is I was kind of in India and all that, people don't have respect for time. So I remember first time Dr. Anwar, he said, okay, see me at 8 o'clock. I showed up at 8:30. He said, okay, I understand you because we are from the same region, but here 8 o'clock means 8 o'clock because now you're not going to have a job if you show up at 8:30. So that is another thing that I saw, that the people have more and see in the business aspect, the other thing is that here it's more direct, right? So if you say somebody, hey, I have a party tomorrow, you say, oh no, I've got other engagement. In India they will say, okay, I'll see. And I'll see 90% of the time means that they're not going to come, but now you don't know what to do because they said I'll see. And then you've got about 10 ICs. So you don't know how many people to prepare for. So it's clearer here, like things are more clear that, hey. Anything else? Yes.
So with the black swan events that has been happening around the world, like such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Start it again, speaking.
With like the black swan events that the world has been facing, like the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and let's say like the 9/11 attacks, are are the financial world and the banking world like prepared to like deal with it, or do they deal with it as soon as it happens?
Yeah, I mean, like COVID-19, I don't think anybody could be prepared for it. But one thing that you have got to realize that in the large scheme of things, so I mean, as much of a human tragedy as it is, what's happening in Ukraine or in Gaza and all that, but unfortunately, sometimes, it's not really affecting the financial markets, right? So COVID was in my opinion, in as many years as I've done this, I thought COVID was the biggest shock to the system because we did not know how to come out of that. All the other stuff, wars have always happened, right? I mean, recessions and depressions. But COVID was something that had not happened for 100 years and since the Spanish flu. So COVID was, I think, the biggest thing. But, you are prepared. And so basically how you're prepared is that, every time when there's a war, people look back at the history of the wars and say, okay, what is this most similar to? Or if there is a recession, then you go back and look at the recession. For COVID, we didn't have that. So they are really not prepared, but like, they are prepared by experience. That, okay, what happened last time? So that's how that is. But I don't think there's a playbook for that. Now, one thing for our company, I was very proud that, we were able to get everybody working from home within a week after that COVID thing happened, because they were prepared for that. They gave us technology and all that. So I think some of the stuff, I think you can be, but some of the stuff you can't.
So what are some of the things that creates like the biggest shocks to like the financial sector or the banking sector?
Again, the biggest shock to the financial sector, some of you might have read about it, was in 2008 when we had the mortgage crisis, where, because, the job of the banks is to lend money for mortgages, right? Like not companies like Morgan Stanley, but, Emerald National Bank and then the whole sector went bad in 2008 because, they were lending money. So they used to have, and I always laugh at that term. So there were some borrowers, and they were called, I don't know if you guys might have heard it, it's called ninja. What that meant was no income, no job. Why would you lend money to somebody who's got no income and no job? But they were doing it. And then it was a stated thing, right? So you walk into a bank and you're buying a $500,000 home, they say, how much you make? You say, I make 100,000. They write it down on a piece of paper, go on. So now what they need is they need your tax returns for the last 2-3 years, which they should, and they want to see how much you made, your W-2. So again, I think is a big shock, because that really kind of went in the belly of the banks, right? Because this is the reserves got eaten up because they had all these bad loans sitting on the books. So for the financial system, those kind of shocks are bad. These are external shocks, COVID, but that kind of went inside there, where every big bank had problems in what they were holding because they didn't know. They had loans in Las Vegas or Phoenix, and they were bad loans. So that is a bigger problem. Anything? Yes, sir.
AJ, thank you for coming over. My question is, what do you think about, for the last year or so, some countries like BRICS and some other countries, they are kind of ganging up against the US dollar. So BRICS is trying to have another system. So how it's going to affect the US economy, and especially the stock market down the road for the next 10, 20 years? Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, so the thing is that you hear that, and then but if you look at today, and this is like now, I think I read it last week, that 93% of all the financial transactions that take place in the world take place in dollar. So the point is that there is some, because there is not another currency in the world that has enough liquidity and enough transparency to do that. So I think that is always going to be a challenge, like with China, they tried to do that, renminbi and all that, but again, I don't see anytime soon that the dollar is going to be not the dominant currency for transactions. There is going to be other things that are happening, and slowly they try to make a little group here, a little group there, but I don't think it's an imminent threat to anything. Yes.
Thank you. So there's been a lot of news in regards of China's unemployment crisis, where not a lot of where they don't have enough jobs for young people to work. And
In China, you said?
yeah, in China.
Right.
And it's gone up to the point where they started to not report any sort of data in regard to the unemployment rate with the younger generation. And I'm wondering if I have two questions. Do you have any banks that work in China, and how does the banks respond to what's been happening in China recently?
See, the problem with China, I think I've always felt, is that things are never transparent, right? So what they report, you are never sure of if it is right or wrong. So, and unfortunately, as big of a population they have, so Morgan Stanley has operations there, Citibank has, they all have to have it there. So again, I am not very familiar of how they are actually dealing with them. We all have to have operations there. But again, it's a little different than a bank operating in the US versus operating in England and China, because the data is always been not really reliable, what they provide. Yes.
My name is Raul Garcia. I'm a CIS major. Thank you for being here. My question, I'm going to switch gears from the geopolitical questions and bring it back home a little bit. You mentioned that the media impacts investment decision behavior sometimes, and I was just curious, from your point of view, how powerful would you say the media is in driving investment decisions? That's especially at the Morgan Stanley level or JL Group level. That's part A of my question. Part B is how do early or young investors kind of cut through all the noise of gimmicky investments or trendy investments and steer clear from the peer pressures of investing in companies that happen to be popular today?
Okay. So the first part of the question is, like you were talking about the media. So you said that the media, how does the media affect?
Investment behaviors.
Yeah, and that has been the biggest challenge for us as wealth advisors, right? Because there's so much available there, right? Like I was showing you some slides, right? That if you look in the market for 20 years, you made this, but if you are, so that is the challenge that we have every day with the media. And we try to provide data, which goes back so many years, and do that. So, and the second thing is, like, for younger people, I think that you always want to look at baskets of stuff. Like, you can take SPY as a good example. It's a basket of the S&P 500. So, if you are a young investor, you want to invest money, never try to pick one or two, because then you always have, so if you pick S&P 500, there are 500 companies. Or there are so many different, groups of investment that you can buy rather than any one of them. So, you want to be diversified, and you want to have baskets rather than one or two if you're younger, and keep them.
Hey Jay, I work in the career office, and just thinking from a career perspective, like in the financial services industry, I'm guessing that relationship building skills is really, really important. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit about that, and then also for students, if they're thinking about going into financial investing or financial advising. Certainly technical skills are important, but how would they go about, what's your advice for building those relationship or people skills?
Okay, so basically, kind of the jobs that we do is it's a combination of finance and marketing. Because marketing is that for somebody to give you your money, think about this. If somebody had 500,000 million, you have to market yourself. They have to feel good that, hey, this person can take care of that. So that is important. So marketing is important, and finance knowledge is important. So like those, it's a combination of the two. And the biggest thing that I will tell you, and you brought up a good point there, in the 30 years that I have seen, there are a lot of conversations that I still have with my clients for an hour where there is no conversation about money. It is all about family. So the relationship building, in my opinion, is, if I was to say, having done what I've done, is probably in the top 3 of what we do. Because, they can get now, you can get a lot of stuff on the computer. You can Google portfolio, and, you can find a portfolio. At the end of the day, what is differentiating computer from you is the relationship that you have with the people, that you know them. In fact, I'm headed to Bolger and Stinnett. 6 or 7 of my clients, they lost their homes in the fires that happened. So, just to be there with them and see them. So again, that's my point. So that is, I think, for students to remember that those are the factors. Relationship building, and then knowledge is important because they want to know, and marketing. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, my question was going to be once you've convinced your clients what the history shows with the market, and what's the most important thing you do in helping your clients, and it sounds like it's building a relationship and trust. Would you be comfortable with me sharing your recent story with the students? AJ mentioned that he came to WT because of scholarships. UT didn't have scholarships. How many of you have a scholarship from WT? A good number of you. I want to say I work for the Development Foundation. I had Dr. Anwar. Well, I was here 30 years ago when AJ was too. So, but AJ and his family have recently endowed a scholarship at WT, and I don't know that it's been awarded yet. But someone like you is going to benefit from what AJ and his family have done. That's big, and I want to ask you, AJ, why did you do that?
Yeah, for us, for me and my wife, we both went to school here, and my sister-in-law and her husband. So it all started here. So we are grateful, we are thankful that we've been successful professionally and all that. So again, there was a big discussion that we've always had about giving back to where it all started. And Dr. Almaz we were students here together back in the day, and then he stayed here, and he's been teaching. So I think that is the thing that, we have very fond memories of, Canyon, the university, the atmosphere, how, it's not like a big, 100 people class. So again, so we wanted to just give back and be thankful for what we received from here. That was part of the reason. Why we- No problem at all.
I think we are running out of time. A lot of good comments were made, and few final notes I would like to share with you. First of all, thanks so much for coming. These kind of sessions do not happen overnight. A lot of people helped out. Mr. Steve Sallard, he's a director, Carrier Services. He helped us. And then this seminar is also in cooperation with American Marketing Association. And Mr. Raul Garcia, he's over there, and he's our student president. So a lot of good things are happening. And back to, Mr. Brown's point, it's you. If you want to involve, if you want to get yourself involved, if you want to send the message across, WT is all over the world. It's not only here. And that's what, when I go to Pakistan and other countries, I'm sometimes a walking billboard. I ask students, come to WT, and that's why some of you are here. And so basically, but no matter what happens, global financial markets you will never get rid of black swans. You will never get rid of dragon kings. Events will come and they will pass. The only thing is, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the issues? And this is where a lot of things are happening, but keep watching. 200 plus countries, and Canyon, Texas, and Amarillo, and the Panhandle of Texas plays a very important role. And this is what, AJ, you made us look very good today. And I'm always looking at Financial Times, and I'm showing to my students that AJ is from here, and look some of his achievements. So he's our role model. And I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and we will see you soon. But thank you so much.
Thank you.